Super Mario Odyssey. Man, I didn't think I'd be returning to this game anytime soon. But it turns out there are quite a few more glitches we can have fun with. So let's kick things off with the very first glitch, which takes place in the Cascade Kingdom. First off, we need to make our way to this area with the 3 chain chomps. Then what we need to do is go over here and pick up this rock. We then throw the rock so it lands just about here and doesn't fall off the edge of the ledge. Next up, we need to use Cappy to capture this chain chomp. We then need to wind him up and then aim him just to the right of the rock and then just release. Now for some reason the rock pushes the chain chomp off the edge of the ledge and you end up with this. The chain chomp is now completely stuck and there's nothing you can do to get him back up to where he should be. You just keep jumping up and down there, chain chomp. I'm sure you'll get up there eventually. Here's an interesting glitch you can do with rocks in this game. In pretty much every kingdom in Super Mario Odyssey, you'll find these rocks, which Mario is able to pick up and run around with. And there's really nothing weird about that. However, if you throw the rock while entering first-person view mode, the rock will become invisible. I have no idea why this happens. It's just a weird side effect of doing this, I guess. Personally, I just love the way Mario looks while he's running around with his arms out like this. He's like, Mario loves you all this much, except for you. Mario no like you. This isn't the only strange thing you can do with rocks in this game. For this, I'd recommend picking up one of those rainbow sparkly rocks that take 1,000,000 hits to destroy. And what you want to do is take this rock and throw it onto a platform that falls and then disappears. So for instance, we'll use these black and yellow ones in the Wooded Kingdom. So we throw the rock onto the platform that will drop, we get on the platform, as the platform drops we pick up the rock, and now if we've done it correctly, once we throw the rock, it will start floating in the air. What do you know, Mario's magic. Now you can jump up and grab the rock and throw it again as many times as you want. There's nothing that will stop this rock from floating wherever you throw it. But I think the most glitchy thing you can do with this rock while it's in this weird floating state is if you throw it at an NPC, you can sometimes get it to do this. Or maybe this. That sounds pleasant, doesn't it? Yeah, I think I'm just gonna walk away from that one. I think there's only one logical conclusion to this entire glitch. And now it's invisible and it's floating. Mario really is magic. While we're still here in the Wooded Kingdom, let's move on to something that's perhaps even more broken. Just by the secret flower field entrance, you can find one of these coin coffers. If we capture it and then walk over to these railings and then jump over the other side, we want to end up in this general area by this fire bro. And here you can see that there's a nut which is filled with a moon, and I have to stress that this glitch will only work if you haven't already collected this moon. You also have to make sure that you're in assist mode for this glitch to work. What we need to do once we get down here is uncapture the coin coffer, break open the nut to reveal the moon, and then recapture that coin coffer. We also have to do this quickly and make sure that the coin coffer doesn't fall off the ledge that we put him on, otherwise we'll have to re-warp to the secret flower field and start again. Which is honestly one of the most inconvenient things ever, as I'm not afraid to admit it happened to me more than a few times. Anyway, once we've recaptured the coin coffer, we then need to stand about in this general area with the fire bro on the right side of the screen. He'll fire off 4 fireballs and then jump to exactly the same spot that we're standing on. So we need to uncapture the coin coffer and then as the fire bro lands on the coin coffer, recapture it. You'll have to time this well, but if you do it correctly, you'll now be controlling the coin coffer and Mario at the same time, effectively. You then need to quickly hold left so Mario actually touches the moon and grabs it. Now the reason you need to be in assist mode for this is Mario is in a weird state where he'll actually go through the floor. What assist mode does is prevents that from happening and places Mario firmly back on the ground. Now everything seems pretty normal, but the weird things happen when you start capturing enemies. When you capture this fire bro that we used to pull this glitch off in the first place, the camera will actually lock and you'll still be able to control the fire bro, but the camera won't move with Mario. Which means you can get a significant distance away from the camera and still see my fire bro jumping up and down in the water, which is also not supposed to happen. But this isn't the only weird thing that you can do with this particular glitch. Once you pull off the setup for this glitch and grab the moon, now go and find one of these uproot enemies. You first need to knock off the pot from its head and then take damage from it so Mario flashes with his invincibility frames. If you now capture the uproot while Mario is flashing, you'll essentially have cloned Mario, so he's both in the uproot and he's also just standing there there, and he has absolutely no hitbox. What's strange about this is you're free to run around as the uproot while Mario stands there, but you won't actually be able to uncapture the uproot. I think this may be one of the scariest selfies I've ever seen. To fix anything associated with these weird capture glitches, all you have to do is warp to another place on the map and everything will be fine. The game will be back to normal, except Mario will never be the same again. Let's change things up a little bit and head to the Luncheon Kingdom. Now, if you've only progressed a slight way into this kingdom, there's a whole section of the stage that's actually under this pink lava stuff. And believe it or not, you can actually reach this section while it's still under the lava using a clip out of bounds. Firstly, we need to go and capture one of these pan bros that hang out in this part of the stage and then bring him back to the Peronza Plaza. If you now uncapture the pan bro here, you can pull out one of these golden onions. We need to take both the pan bro and the golden onion round to the back of this building, and the way I recommend doing that to make sure nothing despawns or disappears, you'll need to keep swapping between the pan bro and the golden onion. So capture the pan bro, move him round a bit, then grab the golden onion and do the same, and then keep going until both of these things are behind the building. Now throw the golden onion into this corner and then recapture the pan bro and then get the pan bro to jump up and down on the golden onion. You should be able to relatively easily jump through this wall, which is crazy I know, and then you'll be out of bounds. Now with a bit of maneuvering, you should be able to get to a point where you can actually see the stage under the lava. And we can easily reach this part of the stage with a long jump and a couple of Cappy dives, and bam, we're completely out of bounds now. Now honestly, there's not too much to explore here because everything is just platforms and I guess you can jump from one to the other, but the real spectacle of this is being able to see the rest of the stage from underneath it, and that's pretty cool in my opinion. This is a really easy glitch to pull off, so it's definitely worth a try, but make sure you haven't already beaten this world, otherwise this part of the stage will already be above the lava, so you'll want to pull this glitch off as close to when you first arrive in the Luncheon Kingdom as possible to have yourself some out of bounds fun. This next glitch is an incredibly fun one and it's super easy to pull off. And this glitch features the scooter, which is in my opinion probably one of the most broken things in this game, and I'll show you why. If you place the scooter on a steep incline like this and then jump, once you hit the ground again press Y and B, you'll actually get this crazy bounce which has been dubbed the moon bounce. And you can maintain this bounce by jumping every time you touch ground. The cool thing is there are a bunch of things around New Donk City that you can actually use as your ramp to figuratively and literally get things off the ground. One of the best things being these railings that you can find on most buildings. If you center yourself on these railings and then jump, the scooter's actually pushed backwards to the point where it's almost vertical, and then you can pull off the moon bounce. Now this is something that will take some practice, but once you get moon bouncing down, we can actually use this glitch in a different part of the game. When we first get to Metro Kingdom, you'll see this huge mecha-wiggler hanging out on the skyscraper. What we'll need to do is get to the top of this skyscraper just before the mecha-wiggler boss and then change up the control style. We need it so one Joy-Con is Mario and the other Joy-Con is Cappy. What we'll be doing is leaving Cappy at the top of the skyscraper just by this electrified pole. Then as Mario, we need to long jump off the side of the skyscraper and land just by these buildings down here. Now heading in this direction, we want to go back to the very first area of Metro Kingdom, and here we'll be finding a scooter. Given that we've already talked about moon bouncing, I think you guys can pretty much see where this might be heading. We'll drive the scooter over to this area where there are 2 abandoned taxi cabs and a bunch of these fly enemies. We'll get those out of the way and then we'll get ourselves on the railing. We need to get ourselves centered on the railing, and then once we're happy with how we're positioned, we need to jump so that Mario is pushed backwards, and once the scooter arrives at a very steep incline just like this, we need to jump and then press Y and B as we hit the ground. You'll see that we go pretty high up the building, but we need to stay very centralized to do another moon bounce on the rail to get all the way to the top of this building. Now trust me, this will take a few attempts, but just stick with it and you'll eventually get to the top of this building, and when you do, we then need to cut around the side of this building very carefully to end up in another area of Metro Kingdom. Once you reach the ground in this area, take out these fly enemies as they will screw you over, trust me, so get rid of them. Now if you've reached this part, here comes the kind of tricky bit. What we need to do is position this scooter exactly right so it's going to get stuck inside a wall once we trigger the boss fight. There are a bunch of positions that work, but what you basically want to do is line up the back of the scooter with where the crossing ends. So you can see how this line represents where the crossing ends. The scooter needs to be roughly lined up with the back of that. About a couple of inches forward will also work, but if you get the scooter positioned too far forward, then you won't be able to jump on it, and if it's too far back, it will be clipped out of the wall. So this is very important. To be on the safe side, I'd basically just use this video as a reference of where to place the scooter, and once you're happy with where it's positioned, the next stage is very crucial. We need to very quickly get off the scooter, make our way up this lamppost, and get to the top of this billboard, and that all has to be done very quickly. If you mess any of this up, I recommend jumping back on the scooter so that it doesn't disappear. Once you arrive on top of the billboard, we then need to look up towards the skyscraper very quickly, and once it's in view, we need to get Cappy on the electrified pole so that Mario can walk to the top of the skyscraper, jump up these small steps, and then enter the mecha-wiggler boss fight and skip the cutscene. This honestly is probably one of the most difficult things to get right because you actually cannot see where Cappy is, but pressing downwards on the second Joy-Con will most likely get Cappy on the electrified post, and then you can get Mario to the top of the skyscraper. Honestly, doing this as one person controlling two Joy-Cons at the same time was very difficult, so I'd recommend getting a friend to help you, and one person being Cappy and the other person being Mario, because it's just so much easier to do this glitch. So hopefully you're at the top of the skyscraper very quickly, and then you jump up the steps and enter the mecha-wiggler boss fight and skip the cutscene. But you're not done yet. Now that you're actually in the boss fight, you need to turn around and head towards the scooter and jump on it before it disappears. And if you've done everything correctly up until this point, you'll be able to jump on the scooter and just drive through the wall, and now you're completely outside of this boss fight. Now quite honestly, this is a lot of effort to go to get out of bounds in Super Mario Odyssey. So for those who don't actually want to pull this glitch off, let's have a sightseeing tour of all the wonders you can see. Firstly, dotted around you'll see a couple of green pipes that don't seem to go anywhere, and when Mario jumps in them, you'll actually see how green pipe animation actually works. When Mario goes inside a green pipe, the animators just shrink Mario down until he's nothing, and then he pops out the other side from a green pipe that appears from absolutely nowhere. It's crazy. You'll see the usual out-of-boundsy kinds of things like buildings with backface culling, floating doors and light sources from buildings that cannot be seen. Surprisingly, or maybe not in this case, is the collision for all the buildings is still actually there, so you can wall jump up the side of this building to the point where Mario is now standing on thin air. I'm not entirely sure why these posters are still here, but hey, that's just another weird thing you'll see out of bounds. Overall, it's just a lot of empty space where buildings should be, and a lot of objects are kind of missing because obviously you'd be inside the boss fight, so why even have this stuff out here in the first place? You can also look back in on the boss fight from out of bounds and you won't be hurt because all the projectiles will hit the wall, so you can actually just sit here and watch and not be hurt. And if you want to get things back to normal and just re-enter the boss fight, all you have to do is find this green pipe, enter it, and then get sent back into the fray. Let's move on to our final glitch in this episode, which involves the letters in New Donk City. Now these Mario letters actually have their own boundary which they're not allowed to leave. No matter how hard you try, by normal means there's no way to actually get them out onto the street. However, we have our broken friend the scooter to help us get these letters out of their boundary. All you have to do is pick any letter that isn't M and then walk it over to this corner and position it like this. We then need to grab the M and take that to the same corner and position the M like this. Then we just have to grab the scooter and line it up like this. We need to drive the scooter at the M, jump and then dismount so it lands on the side of the M facing upwards. If you've done this correctly, you'll see the scooter almost slide into an upright position. From here, all you have to do now is recapture the M and then you'll see it kind of slide forward all by itself. If you now just gently nudge the control stick left, you'll see that it actually slides inside the letter that you've chosen to push out of bounds. You can then just jump out of the M and into your letter of choice, and you can walk forward and see that the letter is now completely outside of its boundary. What's happening here is a bunch of different hitboxes from both the scooter and the letters are both competing and they've got nowhere to go, so out of bounds bounds is the only way forward. Now you can do exactly the same thing for all the other letters, and this will get all the letters except M out. Getting M out is the trickiest of the bunch. What you need to use is the A that you already have out of bounds and position it exactly like this, and then perform the same trick with the scooter again to get the M out. It's extremely finicky and you have to be very patient, but it is possible, as you can see here. So what can you do with the letters once they're actually out of bounds? Well, there's a couple of very funny and crazy things you can actually pull off here. You can actually get the letters inside the taxis that are driving around. You do this by uncapturing the letter and then jumping on the taxi, and then it will drive forward as you're in the air. Then you recapture it once the hitbox is inside the taxi, and then you're now inside the taxi as the letter. If you go into first person view while the letter is inside the taxi, you'll actually have the camera pushed under the taxi to the point where you can see beneath Metro Kingdom. But hey, guess what? It's about to get crazier. If you press Y to dash while inside the taxi, you can actually get launched out of the taxi's hitbox. Now, depending on the letter, you can actually get different results, but here you can see I got launched inside a building, which is always fun. But some of the craziest launches can happen with the letter A. You can get some crazy launches with a bit of height, which actually bounce you off the very far boundaries of the Metro Kingdom, and it's just nuts to watch. Needless to say, I did this quite a few times because it was just that much fun. You can also use these letters as a new way to cheat the jump rope game. Just enter the jump rope, uncapture the letter, let Mario sit on top of it, and watch those sweet jumps roll in. Oh man, I thought you guys said this was difficult. Once I had all the letters out, I actually positioned them by the RC car, and I pulled off the same trick to get the letters out in the first place, and what happened is the R ended up inside the boundaries of the RC racetrack. I was then able to kind of push it or flick it onto the outside walls of the racetrack, and then simply reverse it outside of its own boundaries. So I was then just able to drive the RC car around on the streets. Unfortunately, this section is camera locked, so I wasn't able to see anything outside of this field of view. However, I did see this rat, and once I saw the rat, I knew I had to run it over with this RC car. I just ran over a rat with an RC car in Super Mario Odyssey. I am done, I'm out. I even managed to slowly but carefully drive this thing all the way to where Pauline was, and I thought she'd be kind of impressed that I'd done this. Turns out not so much. So yeah. But I think that's gonna wrap things up nicely for this episode, and a bunch more glitches you can try out in Super Mario Odyssey. And if you enjoyed this episode, why not check out the very first episode? It's filled to the brim with glitches in Super Mario Odyssey. You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram, and as always, a huge thanks to everybody who supports the Patreon. You guys are the ones that make it happen.